now to see if this. Yeah. All right, we're connected. I don't know about the sound. I don't anticipate any issues with that, but here we are.
Your issues.
All right. Let's see. Group scene. Yeah, this is the main thing here. All right. What's up? How's everybody doing? Darius, you said it right. You said it right. I'm doing just fine. I'm doing just fine. How are you doing? Different form. Blacklisted, how are you? Yeah, it's kind of a Pittsburgh trend. I don't know. I know like three rappers. I know three rappers from 20 years ago that have not changed their name. That's about it. I'm late to the game with it, actually. True. So I'm trying something here. Not only are we streaming, I'm recording as well, just as a backup. I don't know how much CPU intensive, you know what I mean? That is. Hopefully, it doesn't really change anything in terms of the stream, but desktop from 6 years ago. But it's good. I think it's an i5. It's an i5. I think it's an i5. Honestly, I don't remember. It's a Lenovo. I like the Lenovo. I like that brand. All right, should we get into it? Probably too loud, is my guess. Your own track here, because you're just one of a kind. It's a self-titled album, right? So,
Yeah.
but it's a group effort, and the album slash group is called Marlowe. Seattle. So it consists of a Seattle-based producer, LaOrange, and North Carolina
L'Orange.
MC LaOrange, and
L'Orange, yeah. I think that's how you pronounce it. Pretty sure.
right, and then North Carolina MC Solemn Brigham. And so it's their first album together, and it's released on what I think is one of the best hip hop labels. To me, they're kind of like and a whole host of other talented
Yeah.
acts. So that's
Don't
the album we're
bullshit,
talking about.
man.
It's
Honestly.
a couple years ago, right? 2018.
Yep.
This was different forms idea. So Dave, why don't you tell us how'd you get into this album? Yeah, Plato from Deep Space Five rings a bell. Absolutely.
That's why you don't change your name. You break the continuity.
I know, right?
Understand?
Right,
See?
right.
I was
But he
just-
put out, he's a rapper and produces. He put out a producer album with a bunch of featured MCs called Black Lung. Came out in 2021. But Solemn Brigham was on a song called Ultra Mag. And despite listening to Mello Music Artists, I had not checked out Solemn Brigham at this point or Marlowe. So that song hit me. I dug it. I was like, man, this guy's pretty dope. And I was like, I better check out some more stuff. And then he put around the same time he put out his solo album by Solemn Brigham called South Center Street. And that's actually my favorite Solemn Brigham album right now. But I chose this because Marlowe 3 was coming out. McCrum produces 2 tracks on that. There's only a couple, maybe like 1 or 2 Laurent's produced tracks on a solo album. but that was my introduction to Solemn Brigham, and then I got into, sometimes you come across an artist who really resonate with you, like the way they sing. It's like they're like taking the words out of your mouth a little bit. Like I feel like that when I listen to Solemn Brigham, like the way, just his emotions. It's real authentic. He talks about like it's real personal, but it's written in a broad manner, kind of where like you could not be inside his head and still just vibe with the music, like some of the hooks, the beats, like. But if you listen to like his words, he's really like talking about his personal emotions, feelings, anxieties, like. And I really like when I first started listening to him, it really like hit me with his music.
Nice. Now,
That's
is
my quick
that
introduction there?
yeah, that idea about his personal emotions and everything, is that, do you think that's something on this album, or is that just like his broad body of work you're talking about?
Both. I think it's a lot on this album. There's some points in some of those that really, his personality, how he handles situations, and how he kind of steps back and observes like himself, I guess.
Yeah. That's funny you mentioned the basement. Well, I had a different take on it, but I just want to, at least, I also like that some of the tracks, it's more upbeat. I was even like getting one of those, and then, a lot of them were around like 95 and stuff. So it's definitely more upbeat. And
Yeah.
I appreciated I guess it's like old talk radio samples that they had. There was a lot of that, coming off records and stuff,
Right.
like stuff that was probably put out in the 40s and 50s. That was pretty cool. There's a lot of like low end.
Just like bass lines or like bass stabs and like the use of like guitar samples too. Like I really dig that throughout the album.
Yep. Organs. I heard some like jazz organs and stuff. And definitely the drum breaks. It keeps like the drum breaks pretty dirty.
In a way, it doesn't sound like a Western, but like the music gives me like a Wild West vibe. Where like,
Right. Yeah.
I feel like, especially the way Solemn spits, it feels like he's like constantly firing from the hip. You know what I mean? Like the way he spits is just, it's like rapid. You know what I mean?
You.
Like that combined with like the selection of guitar sounds, the bass lines. Yeah, it's like I don't know, gives me like a hip hop meets Wild West type of vibe, I guess.
Gotcha.
I feel like the way they almost use the comic booky, it's like you can tell at least the voice actor is the same, something that Doom would use. So I kind of like that it was reminiscent of that, like that kind of like 80s when I was a really, really small child and they were still replaying from like the late 70s.
Yep.
So
yeah, I love that show. I'm a sucker for nostalgia. So like, yeah, incorporating all that shit like really gets me hyped up.
But it's kind of funny you were talking about like being like absorbed a little bit more like in my car, like sitting in traffic, like that being the because like the one thing I did notice with this, and this isn't a critique, like a negative thing, it is a thought stream sometimes where it's kind of like he's not building a narrative as much or like telling a story as much as it seems
stream
like
of consciousness,
like, talking around with like different thoughts within the different verses within like the same track. So like normally like it's and that's, like I said, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just kind of one of those things where you kind of have to like, I feel like I almost have to look at the album.
What I dig about it, because I'm always like fucking scatterbrained, like doing 10 different things at one time, when like I'd probably be more productive if I could focus on one or two. But I don't know, maybe that like the ADHD.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think
I dig it.
So I like it. Like I said, it's not a critique, like a negative critique of it. It's just kind of like a
Hey, just share your perspective on it.
But I do like the introspective produced.
What are where do you want to go with this, Darius?
Give me a second here. I'm trying to. We have some listeners in the room here. and I'm trying to chat, and
Oh,
I guess
shit, we
because I have
do.
so much running,
Oh man,
over to even to say thanks for letting us know about the volume, the audio.
can't even see that right now.
All right, so anyway,
You taking like
yeah, so a
Collins or
couple things, some other, I took Lost Arts. I like that. I thought he had a dope flow on that.
Yeah.
And then what really struck me, and I guess this is because I'm like little funny to me, because if you're like in a progressive circle, that's kind of like an adage that progressive refrain is, why can't we have nice things? Like it was really funky. It had a dope synthesizer sound, driving bass and low end. It's probably my favorite track. And it even transitions, because it's got those samples. It transitions between what I described and almost like a Vince Guaraldi, like Peanuts, Latin jazz piano. That was pretty cool.
Okay.
Things We Summon. I think that's the best beat
Mm-hmm.
on the project. Jazz organ, and then
It's
there's
a
like
dope one.
this weird harmony. I wasn't sure about it. Like I'm listening where scary sounds and stuff. Somebody shrieking in a canyon. I didn't really understand it, but it fit.
His harmonies on some of his hooks, they're like, I dig that about him. It's like it's unique, and I feel like a heavy soul, like in the music.
yeah,
It's
kind
like a
of.
lot of emotion, and
It kind of makes me feel like too, like because he's not a great singer, but that's okay because it almost reminds me
it's
like
fine, right?
like Bob Dylan is not a good singer.
I was gonna just say that.
Like he's not like he's
Dylan.
like he's an
Right.
amazing songwriter, an amazing like lyricist, but he can't sing for shit. And then
Right.
he's like this guy's not as bad, so don't think I'm saying he's like Bob Dylan bad at singing. But it's
Right.
almost Slug from Atmosphere too. Like Slug can't fucking sing, but that's not why you like him. You like him because it's
Right.
earnest, it's from the heart. So it's like it.
Yeah, it works enough, and
Yeah, it comes off as more genuine too because there's a couple times. But he does have some fluctuations in his cadence too, which I like. But there's certain times. I think this is the type of MC too that's like might be an acquired taste over time as well. Because there's certain MCs that
I see that too.
it's very intense, like it's this projected at you throughout the album. But
It's funny that good.
But I would say like even a completely different style, but someone who like West Side Gun, like if you hear West Side Gun for the first time, you're like, this dude sounds insane, and then like the more you get it. So I think like too with that. So that's why I almost feel like I need to spend almost like more time with this album to really wrap my head around it. I can definitely I like it. I like listening to it. I'm gonna keep playing it. But I also feel like it's one of the challenging albums. Like I feel like LP's Fantastic Damage was like that the first few times I listened to when it first came out. It was
right.
Like, there was parts that were kind of like almost discordant, and just things that were like built on catchy, but that's why it's there. Almost like how Darius is saying over here about like some of the sound like it was a Halloween record or something, but it fit. Like, you know what I mean? That kind of like sometimes getting that negative or how do I put it? Discordant type of to it is part of it. So
it's funny you say that too, because I started with his first solo album in 2021, and then I was playing some of his music like 2 months ago for Kayla. It was like from his solo album, and it may have been one of the first 2 singles off Marlowe 3. And like the first thing she said was like, "Oh, this is really catchy." Like, so like you're saying, like it's not like it wasn't super catchy like in the first album. He's still doing a lot of the same things, but like it's like a broader spectrum now, a little catchier, which is probably helpful for him. And he's still I know what you're trying to say though, but it's like he's definitely
it can like worm into your head. Like I'm not saying I won't even hear this stuff like in my head. Very unpoppy, which is a good thing in my mind.
Like super unpoppy, right?
Yeah,
but catchy too. Like did you guys watch any of the videos?
I did not.
Okay. The Basement, Things We Summon, and Lost Arts, I think, are the only 3 videos from the album. And actually, I'd seen Lost Arts, and up until like the past week, I don't think I watched the other ones. But Lost Arts videos, though.
Yeah, I'll have to check those out. You want to go into some weaknesses? What are some weaknesses of the album?
I think like themed, but it's like a collection of like, you know, not necessarily connected. Like I said, this doesn't even mean it's bad. But like, I think a lot of times, especially in hip hop, the one thing I like is like them kind of constructing a narrative or a scene or like building kind of a world. And I feel like I don't necessarily get that a lot of times in this album. Like I get like, you know, I feel like I'm in this dude's head, but I don't necessarily know what the hell is going on outside what he's, you know what I mean? Like it's a react, and like an inner monologue, I guess. But like, I feel like I don't have a lot of feedback of like what he's witnessing while this inner monologue's always manifesting, if that makes sense. So like, I don't feel he paints a like very clear picture of his perspective, as much as, you know, sort of I really like or cryptic, you know what I mean? So you gotta like say like an Ace Rock album, like you gotta listen to the thing like 20 times before like you might understand like certain metaphors and things like that. So like I said, I feel like I gotta give this like more solid listens before I can like fully judge. But I would say like first out the gate, like first impression, like beyond like title and a few of the themes, but like, you know, really making me feel it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, yeah, it's kind of like a the canvas where like the paint's getting splashed, kind of, but it still looks really dope. Yeah, for me.
Yeah, so I guess I kind of agree with and I know Blacklisted keeps saying, you know, he needs to give it more of a listen, but I think I gave it enough of a listen, and I didn't hear a lot of content. I do hear a lot of braggadocio, and I'm not just trying to go off of other opinions. I did read that in reviews of the album. You hear the first couple tracks, and it's like, okay, this dude can definitely spit. He knows how to put bars together. He's got a dope delivery. But after a while, it kind of gets... Yeah, the whole thing is, man, the whole stream's cutting out a little bit. Okay. Yeah, I guess I kind of felt like the cadence gets a little tiring. It's a little bit shrill. I think somebody mentioned earlier how it was like, it's kind of in your face, and it's like an acquired taste. To me, it's like he's on a piano roll the entire time, and he's like doing do, re, mi. Like every bar is melodic. He finds like this melody, and that's probably helps him get to the like stream of consciousness that he's in. But to me, it was kind of like one trick pony. So after a while, and regardless, it's still a short album, because yeah, it's like 17 tracks, but there's a bunch of minute long instrumentals. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so, like, that's not a criticism. I'm not saying it to criticize that. Right. But yeah, I just felt like I was looking for a little more variety in the songwriting. I feel like if I saw that live, it's kind of like you're hearing the same thing and then you're waiting for an introspective track or something. And I mean, it's all subjective. Like Dave is saying that you're saying that you listen to it and you hear more of that. I wasn't catching it. But that's my biggest criticism. But overall, I mean, the album is a good one because the production's there. And, in some sense, he's an exciting MC to listen to. He's not taking it, he's not too calm or anything like that. I just felt like, okay, switch it up rather than the melodic wordplay over and over and over again.
Like, I don't if you told me what the fuck happened in the middle of the movie, I couldn't tell you though. Like, or like describe the movie like 3 months after I had watched it. So maybe it's that kind of effect too, like, because I feel like he has a very concentrated stream, like as far as his cadence, like proceeds right.
Right.
Like
I guess
it's this role, and I do like it, but at the same time, it deafens as an effect by the end of the album because it's like it's him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like you need that contrast a little bit. Like I said,
right.
I'm kind of interested. Like I really want to absorb this album more just to get more of the lyrics, and then I do want to listen to the other ones after it to see like how they've kind of
I'd be curious.
Like,
like, go ahead, sorry.
No, yeah, go ahead. No, I'm done.
Yeah, I'd just be curious, like, what you guys think, like, the future music. Because for me, like, I heard his solo album was, like, in love with, like, what this dude's doing. So when I listened to Marlowe for the first time, like, I was, like, just wanting more of, like, his music. You know what I mean? So you guys are getting hit with it without ever hearing dude before, really. And me, I went into it. I want to hear more from this guy, like previously, like what's his older stuff like, or what else has he done. So, but yeah, I definitely understand and see your perspectives, understand like where it's coming from. Are you muted, Chad? I see you.
No, I thought he was talking.
Okay, I hear you now. Okay, I thought you were talking.
I was waiting for some smart ass comment.
I
mean, you don't value our perspective.
That's what we're used to.
Right. It is.
Yeah.
They're coming. Don't worry.
Oh, they are? Did you ever get that sour ale or whatever you were going to drink? Do you have that with you? You did? You're not going to name drop it this time? Anything like that?
This is the Victory Berry Monkey. It's backwards. This was
damn.
That's a lot there. 9.5.
I was going to say, what is it, like 9 or 10%? All right.
Yeah. The classic monkey ales or Victories are insanely alcoholic. So.
Word.
The stream is about as long so far as the album was. We've gone through the positives, we get through the background, we went through the negatives. Is this their only project, or do they have other ones, Dave?
What's that?
Is this the only Marlowe project, or are there other ones?
No, they're Marlowe 2, and they just dropped Marlowe 3 within the last month. It dropped. I forget what the exact date was. They're on tour in Europe right now. Kind of hoping that something happens here in the States and they're within driving distance.
Right. How far would you go? How far would you drive if Marlowe was around?
Oh, I'd go far. Go real far. No, I don't know. Cleveland, maybe if it was.
Yeah.
I don't know, a couple hours. I'd go to Cleveland. I'd have to think long and hard if it was something like Buffalo or Philly. I don't know. Philly's getting pretty far.
Yeah, I feel you.
Buffalo's not bad. It's about 3 hours.